Welcome to an episode of Phenomenal Grit, conversations with the women of the Ascot Limited.
The future is bright because Quest is the best.
Kate Campbell, welcome back to Phenomenal Grit.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to tell the audience what subject we're talking about this time?
We have a really juicy one. It's one of the questions I get asked most often is around motivation. How do you stay motivated?
Oh, wow. It's the question you get asked most often.
Yeah, that and how tall are you? I'm very tall. I'm 6'1", 186 centimeters, in case anyone wants to know.
I think you're more than 6'1".
I'm
6'4", and you're...
I'm on the cusp of 6'2".
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to push you there. We're going to have to get out the measuring tape. Okay, we got a Fast Five, motivation-themed. Reinforcement or motivation? I guess
motivation, but I feel like we're going to have a little fight about this a bit later.
Yeah. And I should preface, do you prefer to be reinforced or but maybe we'll get there. We'll get there. Fear of failure or the thrill of success?
Neither.
You're going to do this to me again.
Yeah, and this one I'm going to very hardly.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
let me push you.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you more motivated in the morning or in the evening?
Maybe morning. Yeah, morning.
Morning?
Yeah, I mean, I get up early, but that's because I have to.
Yeah.
On Sundays, I sleep in.
If we just erased your whole past and you just have a feeling about morning or evening when you feel like doing a bunch of effort.
Probably morning.
Morning. Are you competitive by yourself or by your peers?
See, if you ask me, I'd say by myself. But if you ask any of my friends or family, they'd say with others.
Really?
So it's probably both.
Okay. You're a game night. You're someone you want on your team on game night, I feel like.
Yeah, but it's only a competition if there's a possibility of me winning. If there's no possibility of me winning, we're just playing for fun. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And I know this is contrary to all the things I've just said or about to say.
No, we're being real.
But we're being real. Yeah.
Okay. Along the same lines, in training, are you motivated by yourself, or maybe there's no difference, or
with others, 100% with others. If I just had to train by myself, I would not be sitting here today.
Okay. So are there no triathlons in your future?
There are no triathlons. Well, I mean, even with a triathlon, you get to train with a squad. If I didn't get to train with people,
it's not
game
happening.
over. It is not happening.
Okay, person, I love it. Okay, motivation. And I have probably 20 questions, which we're not going to be able to get to. So I'm going to just kind of fire. Let's start with this. How do you think about motivation?
Motivation is not a feeling. It's an action. If I went to training when I felt like it, I would maybe go 3 times a week. In reality, I do 9 swim sessions, 3 gym sessions, 2 spin bike sessions, and a Pilates session a week. So that's a lot more than 3 times. Do I feel like going most of the time? No. I'm tired. I'm sore. Sleep is really nice. Your bed is really comfortable. But I think that once you start moving, once you start something, it gets a little bit easier. I also have put enough structures in place that it to me, the decision to get up and go, it's not even a decision. It's not a choice. It's just something that I do. I've committed to training until the Paris Olympics next year. And to achieve what I want to achieve there requires all of that work that I've just outlined. And so I don't even have a choice. This is what I've set out to do, and these are the requirements. I also have people who I'm accountable to. So I have a coach waiting for me at the pool. I have squad mates who are there who are also probably in a similar state to myself. There's something about the bonding that happens through shared struggle that's unlike anything else. And so how I feel, it doesn't really matter.
Do you ever consider and reconsider the sources of motivation, or maybe you've already answered that? There's just nothing
I guess it's like a commitment to something, like, and it's setting yourself, well, they say like achievable, measurable goals, right? So if I wanted to, I don't know, be a pop star, that is not an achievable thing for me. Anyone who's
Hold
heard
on.
my singing in the shower
Okay.
would say that that is just like not on the cards for me. Doesn't matter how much I work. Musicality just skipped me. Like I got a lot of swimming genes, but just about nothing
we're
else.
We're not going to see you on The Voice. Is what
You're not going to see me on The Voice, no. And so that's not achievable. If I wanted to say I wanted to break a world record for the marathon running, also not achievable. If I wanted to say that I wanted to become an astrophysicist, also not achievable. Like, I have to be realistic about where my strengths lie, and then, strength and work is where you get your best outcome. So talent and work equals best outcome. And so for me, I think it's an achievable thing to go to Paris next year, and then it has to be measurable. I have to be able to look at, like, how am I going to get there? And this Olympic preparation is a little bit different for me in that after the Tokyo Olympic Games, I took 18 months off swimming, like didn't do anything, didn't touch the swimming pool, didn't hit the gym, nothing. I went to Europe for 6 months. I pretty much ate my body weight in cheese and baguettes. It was wonderful. Highly recommend. And so in January of this year, I had to get back in the pool and start training. Now, I couldn't jump into, my regular full-time training load off doing nothing. You have to do it slowly and incrementally. So there has to be a plan and a structure around it. But again, like, I felt really motivated when I started to get back in the pool. About a week in, I was like, oh my God, this swimming thing, this is really hard. I didn't realize it was this hard. Like, I am sore and tired already, and I'm not doing very much. And if I lent into those feelings of like, this is going to be too hard, then I would have retired by now, and I wouldn't be sitting here chatting to you. So, it's about like structuring yourself well if you want to achieve something, but not like relying on the feeling of me being motivated to achieve a goal.
I've heard this term, or this way to think about it. It's like you can't really, I guess, negotiate with yourself, because once you're at that point, your mind is going to find a way.
Oh, I will give you a list of reasons why I should stay in bed. Number 1, I'm really tired. Number 2, I'm really sore. Number 3, does one session really matter in the big scheme of things? Does it really make a difference? Number 4, I might wake up my partner. Number 5, I'd really like to walk the dog this morning. Number 6, no one will really notice if I'm not there. So, honestly, there's just a list of things.
You've never thought of these things, have you?
No, just coming up with them now. So if you can't let yourself get into that state. You can't let yourself get into a state where you're questioning yourself, because you'll always take the easy road.
If you don't mind, can you just get us into your headspace that morning of the first day back in the pool after 18 months off? Because I would imagine that motivation hill has probably been one of the steepest hills you've climbed. And maybe I'm wrong, because maybe you were excited about it, but.
It was probably, I would say, motivation feeling was really high before I got in, because I'm like, I don't know if people think this, before you get into something, I think you forget the bad parts. Like, you focus on that, you're like, oh, this will be fun. I can challenge myself. It's going to be great. I don't know anyone who's into, hiking or camping or something. The idea of it seems really good. And then you get into the middle of it and you're like, it is hot. This pack is heavy. I haven't showered for 2 days. I've just had to take a dump in the bush and I'm out of toilet paper. Like, what part of this did I think was fun? Like, this is not enjoyable. And then once you do it, there's something to be said for the feeling of achievement that you get afterwards. But when you're in it, when you're in the trenches, that is not a good time. So I'd say that motivation can be really high at the beginning and then it dips in the middle. And then kind of afterwards, after it's done, and you look back on all the photos or, you reminisce with all your friends and you're like, that was great, let's do it again. And then you get in the middle of it the next time and you're like, why did I do this again?
You really summed up like every hiker or backpacker.
Yeah.
You didn't forget the flies, but
Yeah. In Australia, there's lots of flies and the midgies, and you're like, the mosquitoes. You're like, how can I be terrorized by something the size of it?
So the night before this day, what is your head like? Like, is there just that excitement, the fun, like pre-stuff?
I think that it was more excitement at the beginning, and I reckon like even a week in, I realized that this was going to be a long haul. Like, this is a long mountain to climb.
Did you ever second guess it?
No, because I'd committed to it.
Okay.
I'd made that commitment and I'd made that decision. And again, this comes back down to whatever the outcome. Like, I might not qualify for the Paris Olympics. The qualifications are in June of next year. And in my event, the women's 100 meters freestyle, we have out of the top 8 people in the world, about 5 of them are from Australia. And there are 2 individual spots for that 100 meters freestyle available. So I'm going to have to be amongst the best in the world, amongst the fastest athletes that the world has ever seen in that event, just to qualify. So there is no guarantee that I will make it to those Olympic Games, but I have completely committed myself to attempting to make that a reality. And if I don't make it, of course, I'll be devastated and disappointed and heartbroken, but at least I can look back and say that I tried and I gave it everything, as opposed to letting my career go after the Tokyo Olympic Games, which, I was tempted to do. And it was a wonderful games, and I achieved absolutely everything I wanted from those games. But I just felt like I wanted to challenge myself one more time before moving on to the next thing and, growing up and getting a real job. So
when we talk about motivation, at least for me, commitment, like I can like see that and I can kind of feel it, but you would have to push me a little bit. We were talking earlier and you brought up integrity in yourself. I was hoping you wouldn't mind maybe traveling back there and talking about the relationship between that commitment and then ultimately how that bubbles up into motivation.
I guess as much as we externally compare ourselves to other people and our success is measured against other people, and that, we would call that like extrinsic validation of success. Like, to achieve long-term success, we need to have intrinsic motivation, and integrity is something internal and personal, and it's different for different people. So my version of integrity will be different to your version of integrity, depending on the things that we value and the things that we want to display and exhibit in our lives. And so I think that finding that notion of integrity and what it means to you, and then relating it to a challenge or pursuit or goal that you want, is a really good way to keep yourself accountable. Obviously, it's really good to have other people to help with that. But for me, I sort of have 3 key values that I like to live out. That's kindness, authenticity, and bravery. And so this idea of going and challenging myself and pushing myself to try and qualify for Paris is a form of bravery, because there is no guarantee that I'm going to do it. It's something that's difficult. It's something that's scary. It's something that exposes me to the idea of failure and all the ridicule that comes with it and all the awful feelings that come along with that. So in that way, I am showing integrity, which is like a commitment to yourself through this outward action. So it's like an outward expression of an inward drive.
I'm going to need that written down to even like process that. That is, thank you. Yes. And you're in, if I may humbly say, you're an inspiration.
No, honestly, like I'm a very normal person. I think that this is like the biggest.
I want to not let you off the hook here.
No.
You're blushing a little bit, but because it is so darn brave to go back and reach for that goal, I think.
It's also a privilege, though.
It is a privilege.
Right? Like, I am so lucky to be able to do what I do, to be able to push myself to my absolute limits, to find those things, I'm just lucky that I found the thing that I was really good at when I was so young. And I would say that, like, I don't know, I struggle with the idea of, like, inspiration and stuff because I'm just a very normal human being. Like, I just do something that people care about. I would say that there are so many people in so many walks of life who are just doing everyday things that I would find inspiring and who I could learn off. You know, if I could sit down and pick your brain, I'm sure that I would learn a bazillion different things.
We're not sure about that.
That's going to be the next rendition of the True Grit. I'm going to be the one asking the questions. But I think that everyone's life experiences are so different. And if we cultivate like a sense of curiosity, and I'm not devaluing my achievements, but it's just so happens that like my best is an Olympic gold medal. Someone else's best is like being a wonderful mum or a wonderful friend. And I don't think that those are any less valuable.
Yeah, there you go again, just like getting more and more inspiring. On this topic of motivation, Kate, is there anything else that you would like to maybe leave the audience with?
I'm gonna bring up a little bit of our conversation that we had before.
Okay.
When we were talking earlier, you said that you are more motivated by the fear of failure than the thrill of success.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I would just like to say you're wrong on both counts. You shouldn't be ever motivated or driven by either of them. Okay. Because in my humble opinion, but I think that this is a really like key point because people often are motivated through those two things, through like through that fear of like, oh, I don't want to fail, so I'm going to try hard, or that thrill of success and like how that makes you feel and how other people treat you. And both of those two things are like external motivators and long-term success requires internal motivation, so an intrinsic motivation. But those two things also exist outside of your control. You can't always control whether or not you're going to fail at something. And if you live, when we step out behind the starting blocks, there are kind of two mindsets that you can be in. There's a fear mindset. So I want to perform to avoid or to get rid of the what ifs, like what if I lose? What are people going to say about me? Or there's like the challenge mindset, which is I'm going to go out and I am going to perform regardless. So it comes back to that acceptance of the results. And if you step out in a challenge mindset, that is a much healthier place to push yourself and get yourself to your absolute limits. You're also going to be more likely to take risks. So if we use the example of the medley relay swim that I was in, where I had a very, very quick changeover. So 4/100ths of a second was my changeover. If I stood on those blocks and was afraid of what happened if we lost, I'd be less likely to take a risk in that moment versus I am motivated to see how good I can get. How fast can I be? How can I execute this? I'm not attached to the outcome, so I'm not thinking about the feeling of what it will be like when I win, but it's that challenge mindset of how do I get the best out of myself in that moment. There's a really, really good poem by Rudyard Kipling called If, and one of the lines in it says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, then it goes on to be like, then you're a man or a woman, my son. But it's saying that your best chance of like being a good and successful human being is to meet with triumph and disaster and treat them as the same. Like they're both external things and don't change the core of who you are as a person.
Back to the process again.
Back to the process. I know. Yeah, I'm gonna keep hammering you over the head with it.
I almost feel like we have a book here. Okay. So, and I'm hoping maybe I'm not the only one that's like this.
No, you're not. And I used to be driven by the fear. Like it was the fear of failure used to be what, consumed me and drove me. But then you tend to do what you focus on. And if you're focusing on like failure, that tends to be where
then you end up
drift there.
Yeah. Okay. So, and just to paint it, like I wanted to do a hike and I kept negotiating with myself. And then I had this fear that like, okay, dude, you keep doing this. It got me off the sofa. But I will, as you were sharing, like I realized it wasn't long term. That I had to find something else. And I did. But for maybe someone who's listening who, feels like fear is that only thing that gets them to, like I think we talked about first gear, like that first, like getting on the shoes is often the hardest thing to do. But once you get there, it's, like all about that torque. Do you have any tips for someone that is in this mindset of fear-based motivation? Yeah,
that's a really, really good question. And I think it's about like, for me, it's all about like setting up good structures and following through with what you've committed to. So if you've committed to the hike, then do it. And like, and it comes back down to like, am I motivated because I want to challenge myself or because like I'm afraid I'm going to get like fat and lazy, or I'm going to be unhealthy or unfit. And I would say that we're more likely to challenge ourselves and push ourselves if we're in that challenge mindset. Like we're more likely to expand and grow. You may pick a more challenging hike, or you may put yourself in a more challenging project, or you may go and ask your boss for a raise if you're motivated through that challenge state instead of that fear. Because if you're afraid, then you're maybe going to pick something a little bit easier. Maybe it's a little bit more achievable, but maybe you don't get that growth opportunity. Maybe you don't get that pay rise. Maybe you don't get that career progression. And so it's about like getting a good structure so that you're not, again, it's like not relying on that feeling of motivation. It's like I've committed to doing this, and so I will follow it through.
And I just want to add, because I keyed in on this when you talked about your values, I think those play such a significant role in this, because that's the core of where that intrinsic stuff comes from.
Yeah,
right?
and it's going to be different for different people. So like don't think that my values are the best thing, because they're not. They're good for me. Yours might be, I don't know, dedication or fun or joy. Like other people have lots of different things that they really resonate with. And so if you can find the things that you think you value the most. I'm sure if you go online, there's like, how I kind of came up with them was I was given like a bunch of words and I had to pick the 3 that I thought really resonated with me. So some people it's like generosity. So, like I said, some people it's joy. Some people it's like status or money. Like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just like who you are and the things that work for you. So if you know what works for you, then you can harness it and you can use it to your advantage. And so you can get the best out of yourself. Coming back to that idea of best execution. I
love that. And for anyone who is listening, Brené Brown does this. She has a list of 100 values.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful exercise.
Yeah, Google it and then like go through and pick the ones.
Yeah.
They say between 3 and 5. Yeah. Any more than 5 and you lose track.
Yeah, no, then you're afraid. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Phenomenal Grit, Conversations with the Women of the Ascot Limited.
The future is bright because Quest is the best. We are the franchisees, full of opportunity.